So hello and welcome everybody to the Parent and Practitioners Working in Partnerships. Thank you to Yvonne and Anna from ECIA for inviting us to be a part of this event. We're really honoured to host this session today and to share our experiences as parent peer workers working in the early childhood sector and how parents and allied health practitioners can work together in partnership. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands and waters throughout Australia on which we are sitting and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. So my name is Stacey Touma and I am the Executive Officer of Reframing Disability, and I'm joined by my colleagues Kylie Aekins and Melo Kalemkeridis. Today's session will start with each of us sharing a little bit about our story and the work that we've been doing with families. We'll then follow by a Q&A session. I do invite you to post your questions at any point throughout the session. At the bottom of the screen is a chat function. You can choose to send a question to me, Stacey, or you can choose to send it to everyone on the meeting. I'll be checking those throughout the session, and we'll try our best to get through to each of them. And sorry, I'm just still admitting some people in, so I'll just be a moment. Okay. So what is Reframing Disability? So Reframing Disability, or RD as we refer to it, is a family-led not-for-profit organisation. It is by and for families of young children with a delay or a disability. Our vision is to promote respect, acceptance, empowerment, and citizenship of children with disabilities and their families. We want to change parents' outdated ideas of disability and to empower them to build the best life for their children now and into the future. RD evolved from the work that Plumtree Children's Services has been doing for many years in building family leadership and employing parents as peer workers. Last year, Plumtree auspiced an NDIA ILC application to establish RD as an independent organisation. RD is now independent and we are governed by a board of directors who have lived experience as a family member or a person with a disability. We are also supported by a really wonderful team of trained and knowledgeable parent peer workers who have a broad set of skills from their professional backgrounds and personal experiences that they draw upon in the work that they do supporting families. So a little bit about me. I'm a mum of 3 kids. My 8-year-old son, Alex, has Williams syndrome and he is absolutely divine. Alex is a big brother to Annalise, who is 6, and a little brother to Sammy, who is 9. Alex was, so he was just a few months old when we found out, when we got a diagnosis, and our therapy and early intervention experience started straight away. Our life became just a whirlwind of specialist appointments and therapy sessions. Everyone kept stressing to me that early intervention was critical, and I felt that sense of urgency. I was completely overwhelmed as a new parent to this and had no idea what I was meant to be doing or even how to find out what I needed to be doing. Sorry, I'm just admitting quite a few more people. I put all of my energy, back in those early days into taking Alex to as many therapy sessions as I could. I just thought that the more therapy sessions I could book into, the better. At the time, we were following the therapist's lead and the priorities that they identified. I wouldn't question anything. I didn't provide any direction. I didn't think that was my role. It had a really big impact, probably mostly on his brother and sister. So from, a very young age, they were being dragged all over Sydney, having to tag along to therapy appointments. They were stressed in those sessions. I was stressed in the sessions. I was trying to keep them quiet while Alex was getting support. I had no idea then that the most valuable thing I could do was to include them in the sessions and the importance of how we could carry that on at home. When I reflect back on that time, I can really see that I was heading for burnout. But back then I was just so worried that if I took my foot off the accelerator, what that would mean for Alex. Our family was exhausted. We were isolated. You know, I was worried about what his disability meant for our family and for his future. I didn't know anybody else that had a child with a disability or anyone with a disability, and I didn't know what to expect. My story definitely is not unique. We are hearing this from families all the time, and I'm sure that as practitioners that you are seeing this often. When my first son was born, you know, as many new mums experience, we get lots of great information and resources and help to navigate our new role as a parent. You know, everyone I know sees an early childhood nurse, and, you know, this thing that they really emphasize is the importance of joining a mother's group. But when Alex was diagnosed as a baby, I didn't receive any of this. I was told that he needed therapy and given a list of therapist names to book in with. This was important. It was critical. We're still, you know, 8 years on, attending regular therapy sessions. But what I really needed back then was support and a community who understood, to help me make sense of what all that meant for our family. Through my role as a peer worker, I have been trained to understand the best practice guidelines and the benefit of a family-centred and evidence-based approach to early intervention. There is so much great work that has been done in the sector, but most of the families I'm meeting are still struggling to understand what it means and how it looks in everyday life. I was really lucky that when Alex was 3, I found a local early intervention provider by chance, and they ran free parent education workshops and parent groups. And this was life-changing for us. You know, I learned about, you know, my role in therapy. I learned about how to include my son's siblings. You know, I learned therapy is not the goal. Sessions are important, but what makes a difference is how we implement all of that into our everyday life. You know, I learned about community support and participation is equally as important. You know, I realized that I needed to take care of myself, and in fact, there were times when I actually needed to prioritize it. As I became more confident, my family really started to thrive. You know, I am no longer afraid for what the future will bring, but I'm actually really excited for, you know, Alex to just grow up and live his best life, however that may look. I want to quote the words of Glenn Redmayne. So Glenn Redmayne is a board member of Reframing Disability. In a speech that Glenn gave to our stakeholders, he spoke about how reframing disability would have made things different for him growing up with a disability. He said, "It is sad and unfortunate that some of the most isolating times a child with disability experiences is within the family. Times you feel the least understood and the least supported. We don't need to keep repeating this scenario. We don't need to leave children or their families wallowing in a drift of knowledge, option, and connection. Reframing Disability's passion is to offer a compass, navigation tools, and confidence to chart the course to where you want to be, for children and family to be central, effective, and informed curators of their own lives. Meaningful, valued, full lives where hope is more than a verb. It is a shared invitation, a place on the map that offers a better future." That's why I'm involved with Reframing Disability. You know, we are the compass for families. We are there from the earliest point possible to change those messages for families that they hear, you know, so they can start from a point of hope and possibility. You know, Reframing Disability, we offer parents a host of useful tools to help them to navigate the day-to-day realities. You know, we use online workshops and webinars, conferences and mentoring, and drawing upon all of the insights and experiences of other families to help them learn. We aim to help parents of young children by providing them with online educational programs so they can become confident in navigating their family's journey. Education is transformative, and it is critical that we upskill parents from the earliest opportunity, because when our families thrive, our children are thriving. We also offer, which is just as important and what every family needs, is a community. It's a place where they're not alone, a place for families to engage with others who have similar lived experiences, and an opportunity to create lifelong friendships with families that just understand what they're going through. I'm going to hand over to Kylie now. So Kylie, I've had the pleasure of working with for about 18 months now, and I have just been so lucky to learn so much from you, Kylie, over that time. Kylie has been taking the lead with running a lot of our My Time and other support programs and the mentoring that we're offering with families. And I look forward to hearing what you've got to share. Thank you, Kylie.
Thank you, Stacey, and I absolutely always enjoy listening to what you have to share as well, so thank you. So hi everyone, my name is Kylie Aekins and I'm a team member and contributor of Reframing Disability. I just thought I'd tell you a little bit more about my story and why I'm here today as well. So before I became a mum, I was a professional naturopath and a doula. And I was feeling very empowered running my own successful little business, working 6, sometimes 7 days a week. I'm sure many of you can relate. And I then decided I wanted to become a mum and became a mum to 2 very neurodiverse children, 2 very different and neurodiverse children. And I was very overwhelmed in my journey as a mum. When my second child was born, it was quite evident there was something going on with him, and we quickly had a diagnosis of a neurological condition of the brain. And then we could see that he was quite delayed with all of his milestones, and we ended up with a diagnosis of a global delay, followed by being diagnosed as autistic and intellectually disabled at the age of 2. So I was quickly brought into the early intervention sector, and a key worker came and worked with us each week. We did play-based therapy, and we were seeing a lot of wonderful things happening with our son. He introduced us to other therapists, and we were going to a play-based play group at Learning Links. We were just having a really good time getting to know our son and how we could help him best. And I remember thinking I wanted to be driving the ship again, the way I was as I was a professional naturopath and doula. I wanted to be back in the driver's seat. And I remember asking the key worker to upskill us and to help us to upskill ourselves and increase our capacity. I remember at the time the key worker saying, I don't think you're ready quite yet. You know, just let yourself get to know what your child needs. But I was a little bit hungry. And the more therapists that I met over the way, I would ask them to upskill me as much as they could. And many of them gave me a lot of tips on how to support Liam and to increase our capacity. But it wasn't until I actually met a early linker that came into our home to link us into some more services. And she shared a lot of the services that were available to us at the time. But it was the way that she really understood and got what was going on for us. She talked about our lived experience, and she asked what it was that I really wanted and what did our family really want from our journey. And it was just the way she connected that I said to her, there's something a little bit different about you. I'm not quite sure what it is, but you're not like some of the other therapists I've met. I said, you just seem to get it a little bit differently. And she said, oh, maybe that's because I've got 2 kids at home who are disabled. And I was blown away that she could actually have a full-time job and be a mum with 2 very disabled children at home. So that was the first introduction I had to a peer worker model. And then about maybe 8 to 10 months later, I saw an ad for a parent-led program called Now and Next. And when I read about it, I said to my husband, that's it, we're doing this program, because we'd been doing some parent-led parenting programs up to that point. So from the moment I came into the Now and Next program, I was introduced to the peer worker model and had an amazing peer worker that basically showed me how all of our lived experience we can pay forward to others by the stories that he shared and the compassion that he shared with us, and the way he modelled to me how a peer worker can really influence and hold space and be with families. I was really touched by this, and I decided then that this was this new career that I wanted to have. I wanted to serve families in a whole new way. I wanted to be a peer worker. So I think it was on the second or third session I said to my husband, that's it. That's what I want to do. I want to do what he's doing. And my husband's like, okay, all right, I get you. And I think it was the fact that it really, our mindsets were shifting now. We were shifting away from this deficit-based negative model, and we were shifting into a real strengths-based, empowering model full of hope. And that was a big change for us. That was the beginning of the change. And I felt like we were beginning to upskill more and more as a family as well. So I was feeling so empowered and hopeful that I said to my husband, this is the beginning. I'm doing this. I'm going to start the peer worker journey. So I did. And I started to see that peer workers and the peer worker team that I was with at Plumtree, that they model to one another and to the other families that come to them. They are role models to parents to show them that you can do this, and they lead the way and they say, follow me, I'll show you the way, I'll show you the steps. And I just loved that they held space for one another to be with one another. I love the empathy that came with the peer workers that I met. They were really showing me that when families come to us, they can sometimes be in an overwhelm and be in a hole. And the empathy that they showed was that they would say to us, you have tools and resources there. However, I'm going to come down into that hole and be with you. And I'm going to show you the way out, and we'll get out of this together. You're no longer alone, and you have this wonderful peer work force around you, this network of other peers and parents. And it was through Plumtree that I did some facilitation with a facilitator, a person-centered facilitator called Ray Murray. And I remember him saying that everyone is a rich resource to us. And that's exactly how I felt, that every parent, every therapist, every professional I had met had been such a rich resource to us to that point, that I really felt now it was my turn to pay it forward. I really wanted to be a part of that navigation that families need in this maze of learning about what their child needs in the early intervention. And I wanted to be able to be a real part of the peer network, because it's such a rich resource to pay forward, and it brings so much meaning to the work. And so I was lucky enough to actually join back into the workforce in this new empowered way, shifting my career and being able to, as a mum, get back into work, which was really important for me as well. So where does that bring me now with Reframing Disability? I've been very fortunate to work with Reframing Disability in quite a few different areas. We've launched and partnered with My Time Online, and I've been able to facilitate to some incredible parents and share with some incredible parents online. We've also been able to do some parent-led workshops. One in particular was transitioning to school, navigating the first term of school for families that had not started school yet. And that was, I learned a lot from those families and just what they were needing to do to be supported, how they were communicating with their professionals and the education system, and just the things that they need to do to prepare for the way. So that was a really wonderful term we just finished, and especially under these new conditions with COVID. I also have been able to do some mentoring and take on a lead mentor role, and that's really enriched my life, and been able to give meaning to that, pay it forward and holding space for others that I feel peer work gives me, and stepping into my family leadership, which has been so important for me and for my husband, that we can be leaders in our family and we can be able to partner with our professionals and talk about our goals and our desires and our vision and our wants for our children and our family. I've been able to advocate much better now that I've become a peer worker. And I feel that I've been trained in some wonderful evidence-based, strengths-based best practices as a peer worker. But I just, before I finish, like to share with you just some of the mentoring highlights, I guess, that I've had out of mentoring families. One particular family I'm thinking of is a mum and dad with two little boys, and their eldest has a disability of intellectual disability, and he's also autistic, and he's going to be starting school, transitioning to school next year. So this mum and dad are really trying to prepare him and get the support that he needs to get him ready for school. When I met with them, I've had about 4 sessions now, but when I met with them at the beginning, they'd done a lot of parenting programs, and they were even working with therapists, but they were very stressed and overwhelmed. So they actually ceased their therapy for a little while, just put a hold on it. And they were still working with a therapy assistant for 2 hours a week, but just for respite, they said, not really for working on any goals or anything. So we talked about the goals that they had for their family, for their child and for themselves. And we talked about their NDIS goals. And we talked about bringing structure back into the therapy that they were doing, and maybe considering going back to the therapy that they'd given a pause to. And after 2 sessions, I couldn't believe at the 3rd session that the mum said to me that she was feeling so much more together and structured now, that she was actually able to start back up with some of the therapy. And she told the therapy assistant that these are the goals we're going to be working on every week. When you come for the 2 hours, you're going to be doing these goals with our little boy. So I love that she took charge. She became a leader for her family, her and her husband. And the comments that she said to me was that she didn't feel like they were just achieving, but she said, we're living it. And that the mentoring really has set them up for success. And I absolutely love that, because one of the questions as a peer worker, I think we all ask ourselves as therapists, peer workers, professionals, is, are we making a difference? And I really felt empowered and that we were making a difference. It really showed me that it is making a difference for this family. So I absolutely loved that. And I guess it's looking at best practice, that we are using best practice and we are listening to the voice of the child. So it was wonderful to see this happening in this mentoring role. So I thought it was really important that I did share that with you. But I could keep talking, as Stacey and Melo know, but I would really love to throw it over to Melo, because when I was talking about the modelling of the peer worker that modelled to me, this is the lovely and amazing man that modelled to me. So Melo, would you like to share?
Thank you. Thank you for those kind words. And thank you both. Yeah, so my name's Melo Kalemkeridis. I'm a dad to a 10-year-old neurotypical son, Yanni, and my 8-year-old daughter, Victoria, who has an intellectual disability and physical challenges. And one of the things that was interesting is this concept of language, best practice, family-centered approach, agency, all these words that come into our life. But there was words that came into my life from the very beginning. Victoria has a partial angenesis of the corpus callosum. Couldn't even say those things in those early days, let alone really understand what they meant. But this concept of a peer worker and the positive impacts that they have on parents and families is something that I feel significant. And I know for me it certainly has been. And I remember, I think it was the first ECIA conference that I went to, and it was at Brighton Sands. And there was some talk about that top-down approach that the therapists do so beautifully. And I think, and I realized that it was us, the parents, perhaps in many cases, not doing the bottom up. We weren't meeting the work that was being done by therapists in the way that our roles as parents needed to be done. Stacey talked about us running around to all of these appointments, and I thought I was a good dad. I was doing the OT, all the speechy diet behavior, and I thought I was a good dad. But it wasn't until recently, a few years ago, that I've been involved in supporting other parents that I realized that I'm a much better dad now. And I'm a much better dad to actually both of my children. So I'm a much better dad to my son because of what I've had to learn and be consciously aware of in the way that I'm supporting, educating, and encouraging my daughter. it's an amazing journey as a parent, and we certainly parenting doesn't come with an instruction manual, and that's something that you hear when people have children, full stop, let alone the added layers of complexity and the uncertainty. And Stacey, I think it was you that says being the compass and the messages that we hear. I'd like to add, it's the messages that we tell ourselves in the early days. We sort of think, oh no, we put ourselves into that overwhelm. And yes, life's going to be different, but it doesn't have to be in that tailspin that we tend to put ourselves in. And I think that's where the peer worker supporting one another really makes a really big difference. Words like being effective, like it's not about asking people to do less with what they're doing. It's really about getting them to become more effective. And even that notion of hope that you mentioned, Stacey, I remember during some training I was doing, thinking, God, I used to be a person that would say, you better have more than hope, because hope's not a strategy. And as it turns out, I'm wrong, because hope theory is basically agency with the goal, and the pathway is what hope theory is all about. So it's those things that peer workers can do. This understanding what each other goes through is really important, because I've had my own brother, and I've got a loving family, and my brother says to me, one of my brothers says, I just don't know what to say to you. Not that there really is something that you can say, but even though we're all uniquely on our own journey, I think the peer worker model cuts through, and we have this rapport that can then support the work that's being done and the efforts that are being done by therapy educators, and really bring in that concept of collaboration and partnerships. I also, as well as doing other family leadership programs, I deliver other programs like Circle of Security or 123 Magic, but I run a dad's group as well. And it's interesting, I was sharing recently how a mum came up to me, the wife of a partner, and she said, gee, I can't thank you enough for the dad's group, because he comes home and he talks about things. Now, while we're having this conversation, I'm thinking to myself, because I know who she's referring to, and I'm thinking, he doesn't even say anything. And then I realized how beautiful, this concept of ripple effects. We don't even realize the difference we're making in people's lives. The mere fact that he was coming to Dad's group was one thing, but then to be hearing that sort of feedback was something altogether just wonderful. And the reason why I'm doing the work that I do, I just feel that it's made such a difference. Victoria's developmental growth in the last 3 years since I've been involved in a peer network has been far greater than the 5 years before that. And I think that says so much about the difference that we can make for one another, and for the work that therapists and educators have gone and studied and trained to be able to support and deliver it, and for you all to be making a difference in our children's lives. I think that's really important. I'm a bit of a talker too, so
that's why I took my mute off. Thank you, Melo. And you know what, I have heard, I'm on the other end, I hear all of the mums saying, oh my God, I'm so glad my husband's attending the dad's group now. It's been incredible to see the difference. We've had a question come through, and it says, if either of you would like to answer, what would you say to families who feel so overwhelmed and say to a therapist, I don't even know where to start, in terms of moving forward from the initial diagnosis and thinking of goals, whatever that goal may be?
I'm happy to jump in. Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Look, I think we're in a unique place now than we've ever been. Not only from the point of view that the opportunities to children with a disability are better now than they've ever been, but I think that the fact that there's been so much of a change in the delivery and the funding that's going to children and to families, that I think families now are becoming more familiar with the creation and crafting of goals. So they're more, I suppose, aware of needing to be able to articulate goals. So I think it starts with the conversation and trying to flesh out what's important to a family and what they feel may be important for their child in those early years. And we are talking about early childhood intervention. A lot of that direction is coming from a parent, especially when we're talking about children that aren't able, we have to be their voice for them naturally in those early years. So
could I also add, Melo, I really think that in the overwhelmed stage, it's really important that we validate families that's where they're at, but also help, I guess, as peer workers, and I know Melo and I both, and Stacey, we've all done this as well, where we support them in that, and then, talk about what they can do for self-care. How can they look after themselves in this really overwhelming time? So not just creating a vision and goals for their family and their child, but that part of self that they need to reconnect with, and reconnecting to their networks, to their communities, to the life that they had. It's different now. It's not ever going to be the same, but that reconnection to self. And even if it's only 2 minutes to have a warm cup of tea or to go outside and breathe in the sunshine, that's the beginning of that self-care journey. And it's just so important. And we all see families all the time that are stuck in this overwhelm. So sorry, Melo, to cut you off, but I just really feel like that's
no.
It's such a common thing that we see. And I know as professionals, you must see that and think, oh, this family, I'd just like to give them a break, give the mum a moment just to breathe, or and it's hard to see the forest for the trees when you're in it, and we understand that. So it's just being able to model that to them and show them how we're managing to do it sometimes. Like sometimes it is only 2 minutes, sometimes it's longer.
But can
I'm going to really just quickly throw,
go on.
I'm just going to quickly throw to one more question, and then we will have to wrap up. I'm mindful of time. What is the most helpful thing a key worker has led you to do or be for your child, and the least helpful thing a key worker has suggested you could change? There's another question that's come through as well, and I would love to be able to get to these. I will share some contact details, and we would love to, to answer these with you, after the session. But does someone want to quickly answer that one?
So what was that question? Sorry, Stacey, that what's the best thing and the worst?
What is the most helpful thing a key worker has led you to do or be for your child, and the least helpful thing they've suggested?
I think for me, the most helpful thing the key worker ever did was to make me see my child for who they were, that my child is still my child. It's not a diagnosis. And I feel that the key worker really helped me to see that, because they said, just look. It was play-based therapy. It was just look at your child and see what your child wants to do, follow your child's lead. I needed permission as a mum to do that. And I think I shared the most unhelpful thing was that I was ready to increase my capacity, and my key worker didn't feel that I was ready yet, because I was in overwhelm, but I was in seekership mode. I wanted to learn. I wanted so much to increase my capacity. So I would really say that it's best to assume competence, even when our families might be having mental health issues, or they might be just in overwhelm. It's always good to assume competence. But I just loved that my key worker helped me to follow my child's lead. I don't know if anyone else would like to share that.
I think just having that dialogue and asking asking for some feedback from a parent. I suppose that the things that I've least like was just being told something without any collaboration, any discussion, yeah. So this assume competence, or at the very least, assume capacity, that we have the capacity to, come up with an idea or a thought and add to that communication. But having said that, just quickly, I know part of it's our own problem or our own fault as parents, because we've taken that therapy model, that reliant model, and brought that into that medical model into the therapy model and expected so much from therapists. And I think a lot of it is about shifting the mindset of the parent into a greater engagement within that relationship. I think that's a really important part.
Yeah, Melo, I was going to add to that. I was going to say that as well, that it's really hard when families are in overwhelm and you want to show them that this isn't about doing more work. This stepping into your leadership and advocating for your child and increasing your capacity, it might sound like it's more work, but it's not. It's so empowering that it makes what you're doing easier. It lightens your load. You become way more effective at it. And it increases your self-confidence. And for me, most definitely my confidence improved. And I just felt like I could accomplish things. I was motivated to actually try some of the things that therapists were suggesting. And then I was actually challenging some of the therapists to, let's do some more stuff. And let's teach my husband and my daughter and my extended family. We could get everybody doing this. So, I just feel like it's encouraging and it's contagious almost as we increase our capacity.
Definitely. Thank you so much, both of you, for sharing your stories and all your insights. I would love to just keep going, and I feel that we could talk for much longer. There has been a few more questions come through, which I'm so sorry we won't be able to get to. I'm mindful that people want to head off to the next session. I do just want to close by saying that, the reframing, just a little bit about reframing disability. And there was a question about, the type of training and governance and approaches that we follow. So we are governed by a board of directors and peer workers that understand the ECI sector. We use best practice and draw upon current and best evidence-based practices in the work that we do with families. We listen to the voice of the child. We come from a growth mindset and a strengths-based approach that's, all our work is underpinned by positive psychology. We are really aligned and we feel very complementary to the important work that allied health practitioners and educators are doing in the early intervention sector. And we believe that by working in partnership together, we are stronger, and a unified approach will lead to better outcomes for children and better outcomes for families. We would welcome the opportunity to to continue this discussion and, discuss ways that we can work together to best support families and children. If you go onto our website, reframingdisability.com.au, you can get in touch with us. We're also on social media. But yeah, we welcome the opportunity to speak more, even if it's just a discussion, or if you want to follow up on any of the questions, we would love to hear from you. I want to thank everyone for coming along today. It was, what a fabulous summit put together by ECIA. They've done a wonderful job over the past few weeks in supporting the sector through this time. Thank you so much, Kylie and Melo.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity for allowing us to have a voice as well about this wonderful work that we're doing. So I'm very passionate and excited about it. So thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Everyone can go to the next session. Thank you, guys. Bye.